was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
At the beginning of every service, we light a chalice, a symbol of our faith. Today's chalice lighting words are by Florence Kaplow. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision, their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us.
So welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. My name is the Reverend Oscar Sinclair. I'm joined today remotely by our worship associate, Jamie Radcliffe, who just read the chalice lighting. Over the last couple of years, the way that we do church has changed a lot. This is one of those Sundays. Some Sundays we have music from around the Unitarian Universalist Association pre-recorded. This is one of those Sundays. Some days we have a worship associate who's pre-recorded. This is one of those Sundays. Some of those two things happen at the same time. So there will be a lot more pre-recorded pieces this morning than usual. But however we gather, whether that's sitting here with a screen above me, whether that's sitting at home on the live stream, whether that's sitting with your kids trying to pay attention to what happens, but really paying attention to what's happening to your purse, it is good to be together. It is good to gather in community and share this time. We say in this place that the Unitarian Church of Lincoln is a loving community uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and transform the world. That's what we're doing every time we gather, no matter how we gather. So whether this is your 500th time here, your first time here, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your skin color, whatever your age, you are welcome here. We'll begin our service by singing hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own. And I'll say also, we each give back to our community. And so we are so glad to have Karen Hafer and Bailey Fight here to help us through some of the hymns this morning. So if you would, please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn 317, We Are Not Our Own.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you're welcome to do so now. We encourage everyone to come in costume today. I see some imagination at work here. Our story today is called The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. When my great-grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like in back home Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them, too. The only thing she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka she liked to throw up into the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. And then from a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt and Aunt Havala's nightdress and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. "We will make a quilt to help us remember home," Anna's mother said. "It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night." And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup, and the quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great-grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky, and they were engaged. Under the wedding chuppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. When my grandma Carl was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carl was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold so she would never know poverty, a flower so she would always know love, salt so her life would always have flavor, and bread so that she would never know hunger. Carl learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. "Married you'll be someday," Anna told Carl. And, again, the quilt became a wedding chuppah, and this time for Carl's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they did not dance together. In Carl's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carl and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and great-grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time, but the quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kulich, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. When great-grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her, and when she became a bride, the quilt became her chuppah. And for the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world, and it was a tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt, and she told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. And at my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together, and in my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. 20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time, And someday she too will leave home, and she will take the quilt with her. And that is the end of our story. As the music plays, the children are invited to head back to their classes.
Why not every man?
Why not every man?
Why not every man?
Why not every man? Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? So why not every man? Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? So why not every man? He delivered Daniel from the lion's den, Jonah from the belly of the whale, and the Hebrew children from the fiery furnace. Then why not every man? Why not every man? Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver Daniel? So why not every man? Why not every man? So why not every man?
One of the old names of this congregation is the All Souls Unitarian Church, Lincoln, Nebraska. First, we were the Universalist Society of Lincoln. Then we were All Souls. And then, I suppose, in an attempt to be descriptive, the congregation dropped All Souls from the name and became simply the Unitarian Church of Lincoln in the 1950s. I confess I love the name All Souls for our churches. It's a common name in Unitarian Universalism. Our congregations in Washington, D.C., Indianapolis, Kansas City, Tulsa, the Upper East Side in New York. I think that's it, of the big ones. Those are all Souls. There are other smaller ones across the country. I've heard a couple different reasons for it. One is that it comes out of Universalism, that it's a reference to God's love for all, straight out of Universalist theology, which has some surface validity. It makes sense. But all the congregations I just named actually come out of the Unitarian side of our tradition, and were named All Souls before the Unitarians merged with the Universalists. Another possibility that gets suggested every couple years is that All Souls is a reference to the abolitionist tradition in Unitarianism. That our churches were called All Souls, dedicated to the good of all, not just a privileged few. There's another line of thought that says that the founder of American Unitarianism, William Ellery Channing, talked about the great family of all souls, and maybe it was just that he was really popular in the 1870s. But whatever the reason, I love the name. The idea that we are not dedicated to one saint or cause, but dedicated to humanity. It also means that our congregations have a long history of marking the Sunday closest to November 2nd, All Souls Day. All Souls Day, where we remember those who have gone before us, where we speak the names of those no longer with us and bring them into this room. Last week, the sermon ended with an observation that love endures beyond the bounds of a single life. That's where we left off a week ago at 11:10. All Souls is an opportunity to pick up there, to speak the names of those whose lives and love lives on in us, even though they are gone. Since moving to Lincoln in 2017, I counted this up this week, I've led over 46 funerals, memorial services, or internments. Now, to put that number in perspective, there are 57 people in this room. So 46 is everything from that door over. That door over. And in that time, 26 of those 46 have been members of the congregation. That's 10% of the congregation that existed when I was called. And at the end of most of those almost 50 services, I've done something like this. I've asked everyone to look around. So look around. To see each other in the room. And I've said that this faith that we proclaim here tells us that we are all interconnected, that love binds us together. So we are all here on the day of a memorial service to recognize that. All of you are here at this memorial service because of this person's life. So know that the love you had for them and they for you is present in this room, in the connections between each of you. We gather at the end of a life to mark loss and to be comforted because we do not do this alone. Because here's another thing. Not one of those 46 did not have anyone who loved them. Every one of those 46 that gathered had a community gathered here. Sad that somebody that they loved was no longer with them. And there are some complicated stories and lives in that. Because the people that call the Unitarian Church that aren't members of the Unitarian Church, the folks that call us on a Tuesday afternoon and say, we need you to do a memorial service, can you be ready by Thursday? Those are often hard stories. Those are places that need a community to gather. But all of them no matter how complicated the story, live on in memory and in love. I think memorial services are consistently the holiest work we do as a church. And I also know that not every loss is marked by a memorial service at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln, that in this room there are many, many losses, many stories, many loves that were marked at places other than here. So in the spirit of All Souls, we're going to set aside some time this morning to name those who have died, remembering them together. We'll start with those who have died in the last year, speaking their names and placing a stone in a shared cairn here at the front. I'll start with the 6 members of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln who have passed away in the last year. And then we'll invite you to come forward and speak the name of somebody who has died in the last year into this microphone. If you're on the live stream, you can type the name into the chat, and I'll repeat it into the microphone. So we'll begin with our members. Darwin Blue. Bryce Brazil. Richard Dam. Jeffrey Deal. Laura Weymouth. Kay Young. So you're now invited to come forward and speak a name and place a stone in memory of anyone who has passed away in the last year.
Shelley Peterson, Bishop. Wally Peterson's daughter died Friday.
Mike Root. My husband, Darwin Blue.
Pediatrician Dr. Heather Dews.
Charles Farr.
My brother-in-law who married my sister when I was 7.
Matt Ager, my nephew.
Colleen Shepard.
Wendy.
Sue Moormeyer.
Jamie Plaster and Aaron Chizik.
Isla Frederick, my grandmother.
Keith Kuchera.
We have 3 high school classmates within the last year, Rich Schwabauer, Dave Hollaball, Andy Toby. They will be in memory at our 60th reunion next year. Friday, there was a celebration of life for photographer friend Eric Wellman, and it was so moving that the minister was in tears when he gave the talk, And Joel Satori knew him well, and he gave a talk on his interactions with Eric.
Bill Weddleton.
From the live stream, Lynn Hershey, Josh Garcia, David Kramer and Jean Chisholm, and Sue Powell and Jean Pupke. So in a moment, we'll go through that again, but not just for the last year, but anybody that we are holding in our hearts this morning. But first, Jamie is going to do a reading from the Reverend Kathleen McTeague.
Our reading today is by Kathleen McTeague. It's called They Are With Us Still. They are with us still in the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust, have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living.
So who else are we remembering this morning? As before, please come forward, speak the name of who you are remembering, and place a stone. Hope Johnson.
My parents and my brother, Margin Joe Kinney and Lee Kinney, and my mother-in-law, Joanne Cedardahl Reed.
My parents, Roger and Patricia Dickinson. I miss them every day.
George and Betty Carpenter, and Will Hart.
My father, Reese McHenry.
My siblings, J.P. Kelly, Jerry Kelly Albert, Sam Golden, Don Brockett.
My good friend, Paul Johnsgaard.
And a person I really relied on, who I miss often, Don Pinkley.
For my brother, Toby Meisner, and my parents, Elsie. My baby brother, Jeff Morrow.
My last sister and last sibling, Anne, and my parents and other siblings.
August, cousin and Dax's biological father.
My sister Sandra died 7 years ago today.
My mother, Cora Braun, also known as Corky, and my dad, Clifford Braun, also known as Shorty. They were always nicknamed throughout my entire life. They've been gone 5 years ago this year.
My parents, Ernest and Freda Vodenal, my brother Jim Vodenal, my in-laws, great-in-laws, Raymond and Ione Blue.
When you are 80 years old, there is a large garden with blossoms of loved ones who have passed. My parents, relatives, in-laws, dear friends, but there are 3 names that must be spoken here this morning: Margaret Seymour, Lois Hanson, and Charles Stephen.
Leo Yankton.
There are a number in the live chat, so I'll try to get them all. James Patrick Miller, Doug and Eleanor Wakeman, Michael and Nancy Radcliffe, Ellie Mering, Andrew Thompson, Ed Baranak, Don Pinkley, Amy Berkey, Alice Coley and Noreen Lusk, Great-Grandpa Abe, Great-Grandma Rose, Lois and Alan Hanson, Reverend Charles Stephen, Ginny Gross, Amy and Gordon Berkey, Rich Britton, Tech and Duke Eisentragers, Laura Panisi. As I place stones for those names, we'll join in singing our next hymn, 336, All Our Memories of Love. I want to say 2 things as we do this. First, there are names that we're not quite ready to speak, right? There are names that I cannot get out loud just yet. If you're holding one of those, you're invited to come up and leave a stone while we sing this song. The other thing is that I end every interment service out there by saying, you're not alone in this. It's hard to do what we just did. I see tears in this room. This is a part of life. But you are here with each other on purpose. Feel that presence. Feel the community. Hold hands with somebody. You are not alone. The next hymn is All My Memories of Love.
And it's really hard to sing after something like this.
Yeah, I wasn't told about that. If you care to follow along, I will play it clear through before we sing it.
You might recognize the last 15 minutes as an extended version of the Joys and Sorrows liturgy that we do every single week here. And every week, we say that sorrow is not the only story. The poet writes that, remember when you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Or William Blake writes, joy and sorrow are woven fine in a single garment divine. So, just as we do every week, we know this morning that grief is not the only story. Indeed, if the people that we loved, all the people that we just named, are with us still in the memories and love that we hold, surely they would be the first to rejoice for that which is our delight. They would rejoice with us for the joys in our lives as well. So what joys are we holding this morning? If you'll speak them into the space, I'll speak them into the microphone for those on the live chat. Katya.
Weymouth family visiting.
The Weymouth family visiting.
A trip to the country to see the kids.
A trip to the country to see the kids. A trip to Wisconsin to see your sister.
A great day with my grandkid yesterday. We made air cannons.
Making air cannons with your grandkid. I explained to a friend of mine yesterday the Nebraskan love of air cannons.
Sasha had his 10th birthday.
All the children expressing their creativity in costume. Dawson, who will be 6 tomorrow. Star City Choir had their first performance of the season. Joys in the chat. Cameron, Pam Wakeman writes, son Nick and daughter-in-law Mizzy visited from Cleveland this past week. Stacy Sinclair writes, Matt visiting. Our friend from New York is here in town. Other joys. So one of my joys is that I get to come here every week and be a part of this community. The theologian Walter Brueggemann, who I've been writing about a lot this fall, as you've been hearing and will hear more, one of the things that he's been saying for 30 years is that churches don't talk about hard stuff. That churches go straight to celebration and thanksgiving and skip over lament and grief and the hard parts of life. And I am so proud to be a part of this community, where I read that in Brueggemann and go, oh, that's not us. We're here doing life in its whole, in all its complicated pieces. And it is good to be together doing that. I'm also thankful to serve this congregation that takes real ownership over itself, this building, and its budget. This is a transition to pledge season. October is pledge season. I'm going to try and clean up that transition in my homily, which comes next. But for right now, I'll say that part of pledging is talking about legacy, is talking about how this place that has been here since it was All Souls Unitarian Church in 1920 will be here in another 100 years. And one of the ways that we make sure that that happens is through pledging. So all month we've been hearing testimonials from members of the congregation about what this place means to them. The next testimonial is pre-recorded, so we'll go to that now. Erica's sister Kathy is arriving today.
Hi, it's Marcia and Ray Cedardall here with me.
Hello there.
We had agreed that we wanted to be part of the members of church that have done a pledge drive because the Unitarian Church means so much to us. We have grown up in Lincoln, raised our children here, and just the last, 5-10 years, we're not comfortable at the church we previously attended. And so we had gone off and on to the Unitarian Church, and just really this last couple years felt at home there. So we joined 2 years ago, and it just, I think I said when I did my recording for Oscar, it just feels like home. We feel accepted there. We have a daughter who is gay and would be very welcomed if she lived here in Lincoln. And just everything about their acceptance is important to us. We certainly appreciate the opportunity. We have increased our pledge this year compared to the last couple of years, and wish we could give even more. But it's just so important to be able to support the church. Love the staff. They've all been absolutely amazing, and we'd love to see their salaries get up to at least the midpoint. Okay, you go.
Yes, I had spent a lot of time with our previous church. I was on the board of directors, and we went through begging for money every year. And it was a horrible thing, but the thing that we're comfortable with the Unitarian Church is that it's not to build a shrine to ourselves. It's to support the community, it's support the people within the church. So we feel much more comfortable being a Unitarian rather than our previous church. So we just wanted to tell our story. And that's really all I had to say.
I think for both of us, the opportunity to be involved, we hosted a house meeting formerly called DART. I'm not sure what they call it now, but we loved the fact that this is going to be something for the whole community. So that was something wonderful for us. I've been through Beloved Conversations and loved that. I've learned so much. So I just feel like we've grown a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks much. See you Sunday.
Each week, we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. Especially this week, we remember those who came before us and bequeathed to us the vibrant church we share. We support this church because here we grow, grateful for what was passed on to us. Here we give in many different ways to ensure that we pass it on to those who are to come. The ushers will now collect the offering. Alternatively, you can give by texting UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. That's UC Lincoln and the amount to 73256. The offering will now be gratefully received.
We know it in the mountain. It's who we are, long before we're given names. Who we are, dust and dirt and human frames. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth. We know it in the glowing of the burning trees. We know it in the crashing waves of the rising seas. We know it in the fading of the birds' melodies. We know it in the bone-dry ridge where the river used to be. But do we know it in the emptiness within you and me? It's who we are, long before we're given names. Who we are, dust and dirt and human frames. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth. If we really knew who we belong to, what are the loads we wouldn't have to hold on to? If we really knew who we belong to, what would our hearts feel called to do? If we knew this truth, well, we might just break through to a deeper belonging as siblings in nature's womb. It's who we are, long before we're given names. Who we are, dust and dirt and human frames. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth.
So we are 2 games into the World Series right now, which means this is the last week I can use baseball metaphors for about 5 months. So in baseball, there's this idea where a team will have lots and lots of pitchers, but they set aside one pitcher to throw the last couple pitches of the game. The closer is the person who will hit the mark almost every time. Entirely coincidentally, let me introduce our last pledge drive testimonial of the year, Bruce Raymer.
You knew you would see me sometime. As we come to the end of our pledge drive this year, I was asking myself how I could explain why it is important to financially support our church. And I decided that I needed to look at our mission. We say we are a people of open minds. Well, in this time of polarization, when compromise has become a dirty word, we offer reason and tolerance at this church. That certainly seems important to support. We say we are people of loving hearts. There's a lot of hate and invective in our society right now. We dare to talk about love. Last Sunday, we had a whole service about love. That seems important to support. And we say we are people of helping hands. I see a lot of abject hypocrisy between what people say and do these days. But here in this church, we don't just talk about our values. We strive to put them into action. And finally, we say we are people who show up. Because if you don't show up, nothing else counts. There's a specific way the church needs all of us to support our mission. It needs our pledge to show up. You can say hallelujah, you can say amen. So, if you have not made your pledge yet, please make it show up today.
So we're wrapping up Pledge Drive this month. Right? We're wrapping up Pledge Drive today, actually. And I'll say the obvious, this is not a clear fit for All Souls Day. Make people very sad and then ask them for money is not a growth strategy. But the connection is legacy. Because here's the reading that we started Pledge Drive with 3 Sundays ago by the Reverend Bill Neely. Stewardship is our way of saying, we got you. Your fare has been paid by those who have come before. So come on board, sit down, and take a rest. You, the stranger, you, the sad, you, the fearful, you who feels alone, your fare has been paid by people of faith who've built these walls and built these ministries and built this faith of hope and love. Many of them aren't even here anymore. Many have died, and yet their gifts live in ministries that exist to welcome, strengthen, and bless you. So come here and know love. Come here and know hope. Come here and know that you are not alone. We've got you, as others before have had us. And once you're on the bus and you have your bearings and have some hope and a sense of your own voice and strength, know that you can get others too. Here in this house, you'll be surrounded by people committed not to reflecting the profanities of the world, but to transforming them into moments of beauty and goodness. You'll be able, with our strength and shared inspiration, to bring others aboard so that they find warmth and inspiration. Writers who in turn will share that with even more people. So you'll be able to, having your fare paid by those who've come before, pay the fares of those to come, so that this house of love and hope welcomes everyone who seeks its comfort, wisdom, and community. That's where we started. That's not an All Souls Day reading. And it is definitely an All Souls Day reading. Because a church, any church, is a story passed down through generations. A cairn, a pile of stones, is one of the most ancient things that humans have been building. Markers left by generations before saying, come this way. Here's where I was. This way the path is a little bit easier. I mentioned Jean Pupke earlier. She was my mentor through the Unitarian Universalist Associations. In tough times, she was the person in that Bill Neely reading who caught me. In easy times, she challenged me. She paid my way and helped me get my bearings in this job, found a sense of my own voice. And she died in February. And entirely coincidentally, over the last year, the UUA asked if I would be interested in meeting once a month with a young minister in formation. So I have been. I hope one day she remembers me fondly. I hear myself ask in these monthly meetings questions that sound a lot like Jean Pupke. Yes, I get that, but how is that serving the church? What's your role in this? What are you giving up to do this thing, and why? These are questions that Jean asked me, that I'm asking the next generation of ministry. And maybe she'll pass on some of those same questions to people that she mentors years from now. That's how church works. That's how all of this works, because we aren't the first ones doing this. God willing, we won't be the last. That's also the point of the pledge drive. That's why we support churches. That's why we pledge. It's a Unitarian Universalist church. I don't pledge to our churches in hopes of salvation. First, that's just bad theology. And second, what a terrible motivating force. I don't pledge to church because there are nice people here. There absolutely are, but there are nice people who work at the Children's Museum. I don't even pledge to the church to support the work of justice in the world. I can and do give to Planned Parenthood and the ACLU out in Nebraska, any number of advocacy organizations here in town. But I give to the church because it is this multi-generational project. Because it is a thing that connects Lincoln and the people wanting to make Lincoln a better place in 1870 to the people who will try and make Lincoln a better place in 2120. That's why I do it. I give to the church because it's a place for what my colleague Leslie Takahashi writes, where we are more than remembered. They, meaning those who have gone before, are memory itself. For what we love lives on in the way our beloved dead accompany us through our lives. Their words and wisdom our guide, their humor our relief, their restless concern for the world our change. Through this we know immortality. Through this we know immortality. Leslie Takahashi has been a Unitarian Universalist minister for 30 years. This is the only piece of her writing where I've ever seen her talk about immortality. And she talks about it as our ancestors with us. The names we spoke into this room that call us to be our best selves, that comfort us with memories of their humor in hard times. That's a kind. Through this we know immortality, not the immortality of the soul or of salvation, but a legacy, a story passed from generation to generation, a baton picked up, a race run, and then handed off to the next folks in line. I'm at church because I want to be remembered. I want to be more than remembered. I want what I help to build to accompany those who will follow. Pledging is one of the ways that we do that. Now, I do want to talk just for a moment about the next service I'm going to lead on November 13th, because it also builds on this theme of how we are remembered and what we remember. Many of you have participated in the oral history project that I've been doing this fall. 91 members of our community have recorded interviews, 18 hours of audio, about 400 pages of transcript. So actually, if you have participated, could you just raise your hand real quick? Yeah, that's about right. So the first step of that project was to share stories with each other. That's the part that we've done for the last 2 months. The second part is to share those stories to this community. So we'll start to do that on November 13th as part of that service. We'll also set aside those stories to be held here in the church's archives as part of this multi-generational project, so that when people say, "What was it like those very, very strange years?" we'll say, "It's right down there. We know what it was like. We all told those stories." But that's 2 weeks from now. For now, we're going to draw this service to a close, but we're going to do it with homework. We don't usually do homework, but I'm going to give you 2 pieces of homework. The script says 1, but it's going to be 2. The first, that's not actually in the script, is if you have not pledged yet, there are pledge forms in the office. You can go pledge there on your way out. It won't take but a moment. Or even make a payment. But the second piece of homework is more related to what we've been saying today, which is this. Memory is about story. So sometime in the next week, today if possible, find someone, sit down with them, and tell a story. And if you got up and named someone here, that's the homework. That's whose story. We live on through the stories that people tell about us, through the love that people have for us. So go tell those stories to each other. Our closing hymn is number 411 in the gray hymnal, Part in Peace.
Peace, the day before us, pray.
Go in peace, go in faith, and go in love. Amen.